They always said family comes first. I believed that, until the night I had to choose between blood and the person I love most. I made my choice, and I've been living with the fallout ever since.
Welcome to Reddit Toxic Family Telltales channel. New episode every day.
My brother stalked my girlfriend at a wedding, and when I tried to protect her, my own parents defended him. Now he's sitting in prison for domestic violence. The second my girlfriend, Victoria, she's 25, walked through the door, my brother Samuel's whole demeanor changed. It was like watching a switch flip. He practically shoved my mom aside just so he could be the first one to hug Victoria. And not just a quick hug either. He clung to her for so long that she had to physically step back. And it only went downhill from there. During dinner, he kept finding excuses to brush her arm, touch her shoulder, lean way too close. He'd laugh at these so-called inside jokes that made no sense at all, considering they had literally just met. At one point, he shoved past me just to grab the seat next to her. And then, he crossed a line I'll never forget. He tried to feed her from his own fork, while holding intense eye contact like some creep straight out of a bad romance movie. Victoria, she stayed polite. She didn't want to cause a scene. It was her first time meeting my family, and she wanted to make a good impression. But I could see it in her body language. She was uncomfortable, and Samuel wasn't done. He spent the entire evening digging up stories from my childhood, twisting them to make me look pathetic. He even made up this insane story about how he once saved my high school girlfriend from me, claiming I was emotionally abusive. Total fiction. Victoria knew it wasn't true because I'd already told her about my past. But the worst part? My parents just sat there nodding along, acting like every word Samuel spewed was gospel truth. After dinner, things escalated. Victoria offered to help clean up. She's always trying to be helpful. Meanwhile, I was in the garage helping my dad move boxes when I realized I hadn't seen her for a while. My gut told me something was wrong. I went inside and found her cornered in the kitchen. Samuel was literally blocking her path to the door, leaning in way too close, one hand planted on the counter beside her hip. He was telling her she deserved someone more exciting than boring, unstable me. She had already told him to back off, twice. When she saw me, her whole face shifted, relief. She rushed to stand next to me. And Samuel? He just laughed it off, like it was all one big joke. But I could feel Victoria trembling beside me. We'd been together 8 months at this point. 8 perfect months. But Samuel managed to taint everything with his obsession. Now, to make sense of this, I need to give you some backstory. Samuel and I grew up in a small Minnesota town. Our parents did well financially, they're both in real estate, but honestly, they cared more about appearances than actually being a family. Samuel was born 3 years after me, and from the second he arrived, he was the golden child. Nothing he did was ever wrong. Every mistake somehow became my fault. And Samuel's behavior? Let's just say there were warning signs my parents refused to acknowledge. When he was 6, he smashed my gaming console because I wouldn't let him play. Instead of punishing him, they bought him his own and scolded me for not sharing. When he was 12, he fed my hamster chocolate, knowing it was toxic. The hamster died. My parents called it an accident and told me I shouldn't have pets if I wasn't going to take care of them properly. By high school, it was worse. He spread rumors about me cheating on my girlfriend. That relationship ended because of him. My parents, they excused it, saying he was just being protective. That pattern followed us into adulthood. Samuel still lives at home, working for my dad at the family business. He sabotaged my relationships one by one. Told one girlfriend's family I had a gambling addiction, total lie. Told another that I cheated on all my exes. Each time, my parents either defended him or accused me of exaggerating. When I met Victoria, I swore things would be different. She's the best thing that's ever happened to me. Smart, compassionate, a pediatric nurse. We met at the hospital cafe while I was visiting a coworker after surgery. We bonded over how awful the coffee was, and those little chats turned into real dates. From the start, I told her everything about my family, because I wanted her prepared. She was the one who encouraged me to give them another chance, saying, maybe things will be different now that you're adults. She always tries to see the best in people. I finally agreed, and that disastrous dinner was the result. But the real nightmare began after. A few days later, Victoria started receiving strange calls. At first, it was heavy breathing, then hang-ups, then voicemails calling her stuck up for rejecting a better option. Creepy, degrading stuff. Some messages described what she was wearing at work, proving someone was watching her. That's when I recognized the voices, Samuel's old high school buddies. Guys who still hang around him because he throws money at them. Victoria blocked the numbers. New ones popped up. Then his friends started showing up at her hospital, pretending to be visitors, but just lurking in the pediatric ward for hours. Last week, one of them even followed her to her car after a night shift. She called me sobbing, too afraid to drive home. I had to pick her up. My buddy followed us in his car, just in case we were being tailed. Victoria has started having panic attacks before her shifts. Her coworkers notice something's wrong. She's terrified, and I've never felt more helpless. Yesterday, I finally snapped. I had everything, recordings of voicemails, screenshots of texts, security footage of Samuel's friends stalking her at work. I went to confront him at our parents' house. I laid it all out. And Samuel? He just smirked, looked me dead in the eyes and said he had no idea what I was talking about. Then added, maybe if Victoria wasn't such a prude, people wouldn't feel the need to teach her a lesson. That was it. Something inside me broke. Punched him. Once. Hard. He immediately started howling like I tried to kill him, even though it was just a bloody nose. Our parents rushed in and, of course, lost their minds at me. Not him. Me. They didn't even glance at the evidence. My mom sobbed over her baby boy. My dad screamed that I've always been jealous of Samuel and need anger management. When I explained about the harassment, my mom straight up said Victoria must have led Samuel on and was playing the victim. My dad told me to leave and not come back until I apologized to Samuel. Now I'm at Victoria's apartment. She finally fell asleep after crying for hours, but she's terrified to go to work. Her supervisor's been understanding, but she's worried her job is on the line if this keeps escalating. She loves those kids in the pediatric ward. She shouldn't have to give that up because of my psychotic brother. I'm at my wit's end. The police want more proof tying Samuel directly to the harassment. My girlfriend is living in fear. My family is gaslighting me into thinking this is all somehow my fault. And the sickest part? Every time I think Samuel can't possibly sink lower, he proves me wrong. So now I'm left asking, how do I protect Victoria while surviving the nightmare that is my own family? Update 1. First off, I want to say thank you. Seriously. Reading through all the comments on my original post made me realize just how serious the situation is. Victoria and I have been following the advice many of you gave, documenting everything, keeping records, and even pursuing legal action. But here's the problem. Things have gotten worse, much worse, and I need to get this off my chest. We did exactly what people suggested. We went to the police. We spent hours putting everything together. Screenshots of threatening texts, recordings of those disgusting voicemails, security footage from the hospital showing Samuel's friends hanging around like predators. We even had written statements from 3 of Victoria's co-workers who personally saw the stalking. At first, the officers seemed concerned, especially about the workplace harassment. But the second we mentioned Samuel's best friend, Tyler, everything shifted. See, Tyler's dad is a police sergeant in town. The moment his name came up, the officer's whole attitude changed. Suddenly, he was telling us there wasn't enough proof Samuel was orchestrating things. Suddenly, Victoria might have been misinterpreting friendly attention. And then came the insult of all insults. He asked if Victoria had maybe encouraged it. Encouraged it, after being cornered, stalked, followed to her car, harassed nonstop. We asked to speak to a female officer, thinking maybe she'd take it seriously. But nope, we just got the runaround. Eventually, they said they'd issue warnings to the guys we identified on the footage. Warnings. That's it. No charges. No protection. Just a pat on the head and a we'll keep an eye on it. Felt like banging our heads against a wall. And my parents? Somehow, they managed to be even worse. The very next day, Samuel shows up at their house with a black eye, claiming I attacked him again. Mind you, I hadn't even seen him since the night I punched him weeks earlier. But of course, my parents believed him instantly. My mom called me sobbing, hysterical, saying I was out of control and trying to destroy Samuel's life. She even said going to the police just proved I was deliberately trying to ruin his future over a silly misunderstanding. Then my dad called, furious, threatening to cut me off financially, except I don't even rely on them anymore. I've got a solid job in software development and my own place. He even threatened to fire me from the family real estate business, a business I've never worked in. That's Samuel's gig. It was a moment that made me realize something. To them, I don't even exist as my own person. I'm just the background character in Samuel's story. And then came the real disaster. Last weekend, my mom wouldn't stop calling. She claimed Samuel wanted to make amends, that he was sorry, that they'd talked to him about boundaries, and he understood he'd crossed the line. Against my better judgment, and because Victoria is so compassionate, we agreed to give them one chance. One dinner. One shot at reconciliation. It was a trap. The second we walked in, I knew. The house was packed. My parents, Samuel, our aunt and uncle who always take Samuel's side. And worst of all, Tyler and 2 of the very guys who'd been stalking Victoria at work. My mom called it a family intervention. For 2 hours, they all took turns tearing Victoria apart. Samuel sat there with this smug look plastered on his face, while my mom ranted about how Victoria was jealous of Samuel's looks and success. Success where, exactly? He's a grown man still living at home. My aunt piled on, saying Victoria was used to attention at work and had misinterpreted friendly behavior because of her guilty conscience. Samuel, of course, played the victim perfectly, acting all sad and wounded, saying he couldn't understand why Victoria would make up lies about him, pretending he was just heartbroken that I was letting her turn me against my own brother. Tyler and his friends chimed in with their own cover story. They'd only been at the hospital visiting Tyler's sick grandmother, right? A grandmother who apparently roams multiple wards and buildings daily, since they were spotted lurking in different places each time. And the final insult? They started questioning Victoria's sanity. They dragged up the fact that she works night shifts, suggesting maybe she was sleep-deprived and imagining things. They said her job was stressful, that working with sick kids must be messing with her head, and maybe she was projecting her stress onto Samuel and his friends. Then my mom, God help me, actually recommended a therapist for Victoria to help her work through her tendency to create drama. Victoria tried at first. She calmly explained the harassment, pulled out her phone, showed them the evidence again. But they just talked over her, twisted it, dismissed everything. And then Tyler himself described in detail what Victoria had been wearing on certain days at the hospital, which should have been ironclad proof of stalking. But instead of being horrified, my parents spun it as evidence that she must have been trying to get attention. It broke her. She couldn't breathe. She had to leave the room. And when I tried to follow her, my mom grabbed my arm and whispered that it was time to choose between my real family and a girl who was unstable and trying to cause problems. I chose Victoria. I didn't hesitate. We walked out and I haven't spoken to any of them since. But leaving didn't stop the harassment. It escalated. Samuel's friends are spreading rumors at Victoria's workplace now, saying she's mentally unstable, that she has a history of false accusations. Her supervisor even called her in for a meeting. He seemed sympathetic, but he warned her the disruption was affecting her job performance. He suggested she consider transferring to another department, or even another hospital. We've hired a lawyer and are working on restraining orders. But the legal process is slow, painfully slow. Meanwhile, Victoria is breaking. She's lost weight. She cries before every shift. She can barely eat. One of her old colleagues has even offered to help her get a job at a hospital 300 miles away. And we're actually considering it. Because at this point, what other choice do we have? Every attempt to handle this calmly, reasonably has backfired. The police don't care. My family is delusional. And Samuel? Samuel is winning. And I can't stop asking myself, how do you fight back when the world insists on believing the best about your abuser and the worst about you? Update 2. I wish I had better news, but everything has completely fallen apart. What should have been a beautiful family celebration turned into an absolute nightmare. My cousin Holly's wedding, something we hoped would be safe, ended with Samuel in handcuffs, and my family permanently split. Let me back up. Holly has always been the one person in our family, besides my grandfather, who saw Samuel for what he really is. When we were kids, she caught him torturing her cat. She told everyone. But my parents, they twisted it, convinced the family she was just lying for attention. Holly never forgot that. And through this whole mess with Victoria, she's been one of our biggest supporters. She even wrote a statement for our lawyer, detailing Samuel's disturbing behavior over the years. When she invited us to her wedding, Victoria and I hesitated. But Holly called us personally. She promised Samuel was only invited because her parents insisted, and that she had hired extra security specifically to keep an eye on him. She even seated us with her husband's family, far from Samuel and my parents. Honestly, with so many witnesses around and security on site, we thought, what could go wrong? We were wrong. The ceremony itself went smoothly. Samuel was busy playing the role of groomsman. Holly's husband, Miller, is our cousin from the other side of the family, so he didn't really know the extent of the drama. During the reception, for the first time in weeks, Victoria looked relaxed. She smiled, she laughed. I thought maybe, just maybe, we could breathe. Around 9 p.m., Victoria went to the bathroom. 10 minutes passed. Then I noticed Samuel was missing from his table. My stomach dropped. Something felt off. As I walked toward the bathrooms, I heard it, Victoria's scream. I sprinted, but Miller and his brother, who had turned the corner ahead of me, got there first. And what they saw, Samuel pinning Victoria against the wall in the hallway outside the bathrooms. He had one hand clamped over her mouth, the other gripping her arm so tightly it left bruises. He was drunk, out of control, and trying to force himself on her while she struggled to break free. Miller and his brother ripped him off of her just as I arrived. Victoria was sobbing, her dress torn at the shoulder, bruises already forming on her arms. And Samuel? He had the nerve to shout that she'd been teasing him all night, that she had followed him there. She hadn't even looked at him the entire reception. Miller's brother, who happens to be a cop in another city, immediately called local police. Meanwhile, Miller took Victoria to a private room where Holly and her mom tried to comfort her. And then, things somehow got even uglier. When the police arrived, my parents lost it. My mom screamed at them, insisting it was all a misunderstanding, that Victoria must have led Samuel on, that they couldn't ruin his life over a little drunken mistake. My dad actually tried to block the officers from putting Samuel in cuffs, yelling that this was a family matter, and they had no right to intervene. Samuel spiraled between crocodile tears and wild threats. One second he was sobbing about how Victoria seduced him. The next he was snarling that none of us understood what he was capable of. He looked completely unhinged, and when they finally shoved him into the police car, he screamed at the top of his lungs that Victoria was a whore who'd been asking for it since day one. Guests had their phones out. His entire meltdown was caught on video. The aftermath? Pure chaos. My parents went into overdrive, calling every relative, spinning their own twisted version of events. According to them, Victoria lured Samuel away, threw herself at him, then cried assault when he turned her down. They're claiming she orchestrated the whole thing to get revenge for the harassment accusations. They even accused Miller and his brother of roughing Samuel up before police arrived, which never happened. And my mom? She actually told people Victoria gave herself the bruises. The only silver lining is the evidence. Holly's wedding video shows Samuel following Victoria toward the bathrooms. Multiple guests recorded his arrest and his unhinged ranting. Dozens saw the bruises. And several relatives have already given statements about how Samuel spent the reception making crude comments and hovering around Victoria. Our lawyer says the case is strong, but my parents refuse to face reality. They're threatening to disown me unless Victoria drops the charges. They've been blowing up my phone with alternating guilt trips and threats. You're destroying the family. You'll lose your inheritance. They even showed up at my apartment, making such a scene that the neighbors called the cops. My mom sobbed that I was sending her baby to jail, while my dad swore he'd ruin my career in this state. So Victoria and I made a decision. She accepted the job offer at the hospital 300 miles away. I arranged to work remotely. We're moving at the end of next month. Some people will call it running away, but the truth is we're choosing survival. We're choosing peace. We're choosing each other. Holly understands. She promised to keep us updated about any family fallout. But honestly, I don't need updates. The hardest part of all this is knowing my family will never admit Samuel needs help. Even after he assaulted a woman at a wedding in front of dozens of witnesses, they still defend him. They still blame her. Sometimes I wonder, if someone had stepped in when we were kids, if someone had taken the warning signs seriously, would it have come to this? I'll never know. All I can do now is protect Victoria and build a new life for us, far, far away from Samuel. Update 3. I wasn't planning on posting another update. Honestly, after everything that happened, I thought the chapter with my family was closed. But yesterday, something happened that shook me to my core. After 4 years of blessed silence, I got a call from my mom. A call that left me feeling both vindicated and deeply, deeply sad. Before I get into it, here's a quick catch-up on where life has taken us. Victoria and I got married 2 years ago. Nothing flashy, just a small, intimate ceremony surrounded by Holly's family and Victoria's relatives. It was perfect. We bought a house in our new city. Victoria is now head pediatric nurse at her hospital. I'm still working for the same company, but last year I got promoted to senior developer. And the biggest news? We're expecting our first child. A little girl. She's due in just 3 months. Life has been peaceful, happy, safe. Until yesterday, in the middle of a work meeting, my phone started blowing up. Call after call from numbers I didn't recognize. Normally, I ignore those. My family has a habit of cycling through new phones to sneak past my blocks. But then I saw a voicemail. When I played it back, my mom's voice was frantic, desperate, almost incoherent through the sobs. Against my better judgment, I called her back. She could barely speak, but I pieced it together. Turns out Samuel got married last year. None of us knew, obviously. We've been no contact since the wedding disaster. He married a woman named Rachel. They met at church, apparently, and their families arranged the marriage quickly. My mom gushed about how perfect it was, how Samuel had finally found a good Christian woman who understood him. And for a while, everyone acted like life was picture perfect. Until last week. Rachel's coworker called the police after she missed 3 days of work. When officers went to check on her, they found Rachel badly injured. 2 broken ribs, a fractured wrist, bruises everywhere. And here's where it gets even darker. When investigators dug deeper, they discovered my dad had been helping Samuel cover up the abuse. For months, Rachel told police everything. Samuel started hitting her just 2 months into their marriage. Every time she threatened to leave, my dad would swoop in. He used his real estate connections to pressure Rachel's family about their mortgage. He threatened her job security through his business friends. He even convinced her parents she was unstable and making things up. Sound familiar? Exactly the same tactics they used against Victoria. The final straw was Rachel getting a promotion, something that would have given her financial independence. Samuel lost it, beat her so badly she couldn't go to work. When she called my dad for help, do you know what he said? Put some ice on it, and remember your wedding vows. That's when her coworker intervened. And that's how the police finally got involved. Both Samuel and my dad were arrested. Samuel for domestic violence. My dad for witness intimidation and conspiracy. My mom? She wanted me to come back, to help deal with everything. Through her sobs, she told me family needs to stick together in times of crisis. That Samuel and dad needed my support. That Rachel was obviously exaggerating. Just like Victoria supposedly had. I snapped. I told her exactly what I thought. How she'd enabled Samuel his entire life. How she defended him even after he tried to assault Victoria in front of witnesses at Holly's wedding. I asked her if she'd ever once considered what would have happened if they'd held him accountable years ago. If they'd gotten him help when he was a kid. Maybe Rachel wouldn't be lying in a hospital bed right now. She broke. For the first time in my life, my mom admitted they knew Samuel had problems. She said they thought they were protecting him by covering it up. That they should have done something sooner. Too little. Too late. I hung up, blocked her new number. Later, Holly called me with more details. Rachel's parents are devastated. They regret not believing her sooner. They're fully supporting her in pressing charges, not just against Samuel, but against my dad too. Police are also investigating other possible victims now that several of Samuel's ex-girlfriends have come forward with stories of stalking and abuse. Victoria, being the kind soul she is, suggested we reach out to Rachel through Holly, offer support. She reminded me that Victoria herself was lucky. She had people to lean on when Samuel targeted her. Rachel might need that too, and she's right. Some people might think I'm being cold for cutting my parents off completely. But here's the truth. Enabling toxic behavior doesn't protect anyone. It just creates more victims. My parents had countless chances to step up, to stop this, to hold Samuel accountable. They chose denial. They chose appearances. And now, they can face the consequences without me. My only responsibility is to protect my family, my wife, my daughter, and the peaceful life we fought so hard to build. Far, far away from their chaos. Update 4. A lot of people have been reaching out, asking what's happened with Samuel, my dad, and Rachel. So, here it is. The last 6 months have been a whirlwind. Let me start with the good news. Victoria and I welcomed our daughter, Emma, 3 months ago. She's healthy. She's beautiful. And being her parents has been the most incredible experience of our lives. Every time I hold her, I know without a shred of doubt that cutting off my toxic family was the best decision we ever made. Holly and her husband came to visit last month to meet Emma. Watching them cradle her, seeing their genuine joy, it reminded me what real family love is supposed to look like. Not manipulation, not enabling, just love. Now onto the storm. Holly's been keeping us updated about the legal side of things. Last month, Samuel took a plea deal. 8 years in prison for aggravated domestic violence, with the possibility of parole in 5. Honestly, it's not enough. But at least he won't be hurting anyone else for a while. My dad's case is still in motion. His lawyers are scrambling for a deal. But meanwhile, his real estate license has been suspended. Most of his business partners have cut ties. His perfect little empire is crumbling. And then, the shocker, my mom. After that meltdown of a phone call months ago, she actually started therapy. Holly told me she's moved out of the family home and just filed for divorce. And last week, she sent me a 12-page letter. 12 pages. Apologizing. Owning up to enabling Samuel's behavior. To not protecting me as a child. To the way they destroyed Victoria's trust by siding with Samuel after he assaulted her at Holly's wedding. She even admitted, in writing, that she and my dad created the monster Samuel became by never holding him accountable. And I'll be real with you, part of me appreciated that. But the other part, the louder part, all I could think was, where was this insight when it actually mattered? Where was it when Samuel was torturing animals as a kid? Where was it when he stalked Victoria? Where was it when they watched him grab her in front of dozens of witnesses at Holly's wedding? Now she wants to rebuild. Now she wants forgiveness. Victoria and I have talked about it. Maybe someday, years from now, she could have some kind of supervised relationship with Emma. But right now, that's not happening. Not when I know they would have defended Samuel around my child, insisting he deserved another chance. That thought alone makes me sick. Rachel, thankfully, is doing better. She's living with her sister in another state, going through intensive therapy, and cooperating fully with prosecutors. She's filed for divorce. Holly says she's been brave, open about everything, determined to heal. Other women have even come forward from Samuel's past, including 2 from his church, telling their own stories of abuse and stalking. Police are investigating. Rachel's parents, they've completely changed. They apologized for not believing her sooner. They've cut ties with my parents. They're even working with domestic violence organizations now to help other families recognize the signs and break cycles of abuse. It's one of the only bright spots in this mess. As for the extended family, divided. Younger relatives and cousins are with us, and with Rachel. But the older generation, still making excuses for Samuel and my dad. Holly's mom, my aunt, even started a family therapy group for relatives who want to learn how this all got so bad, and how to make sure it never repeats with the next generation. And me, Victoria, we're focused on Emma, on our life here. Victoria went back to work part-time last week. She's now director of pediatric nursing. I'm still remote with my company, but I'm considering starting my own software consulting business. We've built a community here, friends who feel like family, people who know how to respect boundaries. Sometimes I wonder if I should respond to my mom's letter. But then I look at Emma, and I remember, if I let my parents back into our lives, they'd expect me to let Samuel back in, too. They'd claim he deserves another chance. And that is something I will never, ever risk for my daughter. The cycle ends with me. Emma will grow up surrounded by love, respect, and healthy relationships. And sometimes, the bravest thing you can do as a parent is cut off the people who should have protected you but chose not to, even if it hurts, because protecting your child matters more than preserving the illusion of family.
Thanks for watching. Today's train wreck is over, but tomorrow's ride is already on track. Subscribe so you don't miss it.